have another show to do. And this is it. It's the Bob McCowan podcast on your favorite podcast source or on Sirius XM 167. What? You want to interrupt me already?
What?
Exactly. You want to interrupt me? I haven't said anything. I barely introduced the show, and already you're argumentative.
I mean, you're hardly enthusiastic. I mean, people like tune in and they say, "Oh, Bob's in a good mood. Bob's in a good mood. This should be a fun show." Where he takes pot shots at everybody.
Well, I'm not planning on doing that necessarily. I mean, you may inspire me to do that.
Like all day
almost
yesterday?
Invariably happens, but and then Morosi is our guest. Well, there's no baseball. So now we're going to do 40 minutes with Morosi on no baseball.
Yep, absolutely.
No, you're going to.
He's our baseball guy.
Well, yeah, but there isn't enough baseball to talk about. We're going to,
That's the story. You don't think that that's the story of whatever you want to call this work stoppage thing, whether they're right or the players are right or the owners are right? You don't think that's a story?
Well, no, I think it's a story.
It's
for
a
sure.
story.
I just don't know if it's a 40
I thought you were a journalist.
Well, you thought wrong. I used to be a journalist.
You know what?
I'm retired.
Here's the deal. John and I will talk hockey.
Well, that's an inevitability. When the two of you get together, he is a baseball guy who wants to be and thinks he is a hockey guy.
Yes, he thinks he's a hockey guy.
He doesn't work for NHL.com. He works for MLB.com. And when he goes to Secaucus or Trenton or...
No, Secaucus, New Jersey. That's where they are.
Wherever it is in New Jersey.
Yeah, right. They're just not far from Hoboken.
Like, how many times has he gone there because NHL.com asked him to go? I'll bet you never. He goes because MLB says, come here, we'll pay for you, put you up in a hotel. Then the NHL spies find out about it and go, oh. Like, this is the same crap I'm sure that's happening to him there that used to happen to me at Sportsnet. Before we would do the radio show, and we'd get a big name guest to come in, and then the TV people would hear about it, and they'd start creeping and crawling around to try and get their own separate interview with the guest that we were bringing in. Like the interview that we were going to do was inferior to any interview some TV face could do with them. So they had to do their own. Used to drive me up the wall. And you know that because you used to sit with me on our favorite couch.
We called it the green room.
These things in our office.
That's right. And nobody would come within 20 feet.
Nobody came anywhere near us.
No.
Scared to death.
That was actually quite
and we didn't even have any walls.
Oh, no. They could see us all the time.
We're in the corner of the big newsroom, and there was a couch there. Why the couch was there, nobody knew. But John and I adopted the couch.
Come into my office, sir.
And, well, literally, nobody would come near us.
No. Well, we should have taken note of that before we left.
Well, and I'm going to give you the honest to goodness truth. The last day I was there, which was a Friday afternoon, I started looking around. Like, what actually is mine around here? Like, what actually should I have no qualms about taking?
The sofa.
It occurred to me. Well, this is my sofa. It's sort of half John's sofa, but it's just as much mine as his, and nobody else sat on it. Did you ever see anybody else sit on that sofa?
No.
Maybe and that's they did when they knew we weren't going to be around, but otherwise, nope.
That was one of the reasons I started to sit there, was because it was a nice, peaceful spot. You could overlook the whole world in the Rogers newsroom, and nobody would bother you. Nobody. And then you weren't hanging at a desk and sitting, and somebody's in your way and they're running through with copy and VHS tapes and things like that.
Well, they talk crap about us when we weren't there. That was for sure. Like the hockey pucks hated me. I know that for sure.
No, they did not.
Oh, no,
The
no, no.
hockey guys
Guaranteed.
Oh, no way. They liked you.
No, the hockey guys didn't. The basketball guys liked me. The baseball guys liked me. The hockey guys, like the broadcasters, the hockey broadcasters, they were fine.
Yeah,
we were simpatico.
Yeah, you were. Or you used to call it combados or something like that, right?
Yeah, cumbados.
Yeah.
But the nibs, the little people.
Oh, really?
Like the associate producers of the associate producers.
But you were scary. You're a scary guy.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's exactly the way I want it.
Okay. Well, let's scare Morosi then.
All right. Let's get on with it. Jon Paul Morosi to discuss God knows what.
Baseball.
Hockey. Come back. He'll join us in a minute. We're back. It's Bob McCown. It's John Shannon. Why do we have Morosi on?
Well, here's why. Women's hockey, because John's a big expert in women's hockey. Men's hockey, Canada, United States, both out, so he can actually sympathize with us, and for the first time in a while, we can sympathize with him. And then, by the way, he's supposed to be working his tail off in baseball, and it's not happening. So that's why he's on the show.
Well, I understand that, but
okay,
the other stuff is kind of superfluous.
Are you kidding me? Canada, USA, women's hockey, superfluous? Robert McCowan.
Well, it's not that the event is superfluous, but Morosi's intimate understanding, knowledge, and insight into it.
Well, let's check him out.
He's a Michigander after all. Now,
let's check it out.
If you found a Buckeye who knew something about hockey, I'd be more inclined to listen. But hello, Morosi, by the way.
Well, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Yes, I wish we had pitchers and catchers reporting to talk about, but I will credit John Shannon for excellent producing as always, because he schedules this knowing that and predicting certainly that the U.S. and Canada would meet for gold hours after we're taping this. We have the return to the ice of Jack Eichel this evening as well. So how about that for an incredible storyline in the hockey world? And this weekend, Bob, as you foreshadowed with your commentary,
yes,
we have a showdown in Ann Arbor between Ohio State and Michigan, which may well decide the Big Ten regular season championship. Let's see if the aforementioned Wolverines, who are now no longer playing in Beijing, are able to make it home in time for that weekend series. But I will say this, Ohio State's goaltender, Jakob Dobisch, outstanding this season for the Buckeyes on the ice. So I've got to credit Bob, the Ohio State hockey program, making huge strides, and will be a tough challenge for Michigan this weekend.
Actually, Bob was just singing the virtues of Jakob Dobisch for hours this morning before we started. While we were waiting for you,
my understanding was we're going to cover on this show
Jakob Dobisch,
the ascent of Mason Lowry to star status for Ohio State on the blue line, and Abby Rock moving up higher and higher on the U.S. depth chart ahead of the gold medal game. Of course, Abby Rock from Sioux, Michigan. Of course, just across the bridge there from Sioux, Canada. Her father, Jim, as John and Bob both know, a scout for Toronto Maple Leafs, outstanding hockey person. So the Rock family uniting the U.S. and Canada here this evening.
Well, now, hey, do you think Owen Power and young Johnson's going to try to get back to play for the Wolverines on the weekend? What do you think?
Especially after hearing the shade that was thrown out there by Mr. McCowan, I think they're going to rush back to be able to play against the Buckeyes this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
They can rush all they want. It won't do them any damn good.
Your turn, Bob.
Michigan wins once every 10 years against Ohio State in some sport, and that's already happened last fall. So you got another decade of.
Hey, I have a question about something that we haven't talked about yet. Since you're in Ann Arbor, John, is how come Jim Harbaugh doesn't have an NFL job yet?
Oh my gosh, I believe that would be Mr. McCowan just getting up and leaving in the midst of my answer.
Yeah.
What I will say is that Bob actually, in Bob's absence, he has renamed this podcast the Michigan Appreciation Hour on the show. And Jim Harbaugh, I think he's coaching John exactly where he should be, which is at the University of Michigan. There was the flirtation with the Minnesota Vikings. I never quite understood that.
Not the Dolphins?
I suppose Miami when you can coach, John, when you can coach in Ann Arbor, why would you coach anywhere else?
I'm just relieved when Bob walked away, he was wearing pants, but that's another story for another day.
Money. That's why. You know the answer to that question. Money. If somebody offered him $1 more, Harbaugh would go. And if you're a Michigan fan, you shouldn't be upset about it because the guy has been a failure as a head coach at Michigan up until this year. He finally won 1 game. Now all of a sudden everybody wants him.
Well, Bob and John, I'll do this.
Failure.
I'll quote the smartest person who I know, my father, whom both of you met years ago in the studio.
Yes, we did.
When we came up for a trip, but we still talk about that great conversation. My dad, who was a Michigan State grad, when the family text chain was going, and I said, "Dad, sounds like Jim Harbaugh is going to leave and go to the NFL." My dad's response, which is perfect and exactly befitting his incredible intellect, says, "Bad news for Spartans fans." Because he, of course, MSU has gotten the better of Michigan the last couple of years. So that was my dad's assessment, which obviously is very much in line with what Bob just articulated.
I agree.
Oh,
I agree.
so for those people on the podcast, he's holding up his Ohio State sign.
I always have a Buckeyes logo at hand. Right?
Yes, yeah.
I had to go
just
get
happened
it on
to
the other side of the room, but
you happen to carry one in your pocket when you go out
And
for dinner.
by the way, representing a city that the Bob has great affinity for as well on his sweater today.
Oh, yeah.
Again, there was great synergy. He had me on the show. He thinks American hockey, Jack Eichel is going to be the top center for the Vegas Golden Knights. Who better to have on the show than John to celebrate this great American hockey career with a new chapter in the great city of Las Vegas, right?
The producer was well informed about time and date.
John, I have every confidence that you knew, you had that sense. Again, what a showdown. Colorado, Vegas, Eichel's coming back. Tremendous game coming up tonight.
I've never heard such a pile of crap in my life as you two guys. What total and complete nonsense.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, I don't want to talk about anything necessarily. I mean, I just want to sit here and listen to you two numbskulls.
Bob, we can go in any direction. I just
You already have gone in every direction. There are no directions
right.
left.
When I'm on the show, as a general rule, there are no directions because
That's right.
John cherry picks the day. How can we possibly pique Bob a little bit, get him going? We can throw a little U.S. hockey, a little NHL, a little baseball, little Ohio State. You never quite know what direction we're going to go with.
John, we have solved that problem. We do that with Bob every day that ends in Y.
So, Bob, my understanding is you are the host of the program. So please, please, as they say, pick a topic. We'll go whatever.
Yeah, we'll just sit here.
I've run out of topics already. You've covered every one. Since you mentioned Eichel. So Eichel's in, but Stone's out. Isn't that right?
That's right. That's the only way they're under the they can stay under the salary cap at this point. So the Stone is on
they
the
didn't cut Stone. I mean, Stone's hurt.
no,
right?
he's on LTIR, so his money goes off the cap for as long as he's on injured reserve. So, but they still have to do something before the deadline if Eichel and Stone get to play in the same game.
What the hell are they going to do? Are they going to play, dress 6 guys for a few games?
No, so remember these 3 names: Cowboy Will Carlson, Jonathan Marchessault, or Riley Smith. One of them's gone.
Got to get traded.
If
one of them's gone.
If Stone is able to return during the regular season. Remember, Bob, when you think about last year, if Stone doesn't come back until the playoffs, a la Nikita Kucherov, there is no cap in the playoffs. So I think I'll credit the Golden Knights for obviously playing the schedule very, very within the rules. I should make clear within the rules, but also very astutely. You have a chance to watch this team play now for a month with Eichel back in the lineup, to evaluate where Stone's injury is. And again, it is a legitimate injury. He's had a number of back issues during the course of the season. You have to see where Mark Stone is in a month's time. He may not be able to play again in the regular season. No one knows. But if he can, to John's point, you have to do something. So if Stone comes back before the trade deadline, or really anytime between now and the end of the regular season, one of those 3 names that John mentioned has to be gone. And I think it's a fair question to ask. when you look at the way Vegas has built their roster, yes, obviously Jack Eichel makes you a better hockey club, but you're never going to have more than 2 of the 3 among Eichel, Stone, and Riley Smith in the lineup at the same time. You're not going to probably be able to have all 3 of them. So it's an open question as to how it all looks when you get to the springtime in the playoffs.
And here's the other thing to consider, John. The one thing a lot of people have not contemplated is there's a chance Jack Eichel gets hurt again too.
Sure. Great point.
When you think of this exploratory surgery, and when you think about no hockey player has played with the artificial disc, perhaps between now and the end of the regular season, the end of April, it's Eichel that ends up back on IR and then comes back in the playoffs too.
Shannon,
yeah.
Turn your mic down. Your mic is so loud, it's bursting my ears. If you can turn your volume down.
I'll just move my microphone. Yeah. I'm just excited to talk hockey with my buddy Morosi.
Well, carry on. I mean, we're happy to listen to you, except your decibel level is much higher than necessary, as usual.
Well, and likewise, I'm thrilled to be talking hockey with both of you. And Bob, I'll say this:
it's sucking up, honestly.
No, listen though, when you consider Vegas overall, I think pausing and considering the Vegas organization for a moment, and obviously the work they've done to try to win a Stanley Cup this year, I think they have operated clearly within the rules. I have no issue whatsoever with the way it's worked. Obviously, it worked out for Tampa Bay last year. And when you look at what the Vegas Golden Knights have done within the cap, it elevates your league when you have teams that are making bold moves and trying to win. It's in the pre-salary cap era, the same argument applied to the Detroit Red Wings. And I think in general, this is now what's happening with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Well, what's interesting about that, John, is that we had Brad Treliving on last week, and he said pointedly to both Bob and me that he doesn't like doing trades in the regular season. He likes to do them in the off season. So what does he do on the weekend? He makes a trade in the regular season and acquires Tyler Toffoli from Montreal for a first round pick, because he knows he has to compete with the Vegas Golden Knights in the Pacific Division. So the Eichel thing is now forcing other teams to do a little bit more in order to try to be ready for the playoffs.
Well, if you're watching this podcast,
nobody's watching.
Well, yeah, there are people that actually watch this, and there will be more and more people watching it as we put it on our own website, which is imminent. But Morosi left the building there for a moment. What? No, he's gone again. What?
No, he's getting either his cat or a Wolverine.
I'm back. That was an interruption in progress from my amazing 4-year-old Lulu, who was trying to interrupt our conversation. And so I made the very veteran parenting move of
locking the door.
Fruit snacks. So she's got some fruit snacks now. She'll be happy, which probably buys us a good 10 to 15 minutes of conversation before the next interruption. So this is what we do when broadcasting at home with 3 children. Yes. It's all about fruit snacks and good Disney movies, and somehow it all works out.
By the way, John, Bob would like a fruit snack too.
I'll send one to you, Bob.
I'm not talking until I get it.
It's a true story. Actually, I'm speaking from my office here. I had especially during 2020, when my wife is working at the hospital, every day, and in the midst of the toughest stretches of everything, my daughters are always like circulating in the room outside, and they would walk over, and I had like a little box of fruit snacks, Welch's fruit snacks. I would just like toss a couple towards the door. They'd grab them, run away, and I would buy myself another 15 minutes of peace and quiet. It worked. It worked incredibly well.
Well, that's why John thought it was your cat, not a kid.
I'm not sure you should be advertising that, John.
Snacks at your 4-year-old. Here, Ubu, sit.
Now listen, maybe the dentist wouldn't love that choice with fruit snacks. Not great for your teeth, but again, fruit snacks have they just have a certain calming effect on kids. I found you mix that with a Disney movie, it gets you an hour and a half of peace and quiet almost every time.
I'm
Almost
with you.
every time. Not every time, but almost every time.
All right, so let's get on a topic that you two numbskulls know a little bit more about. That's baseball. We are. So when were spring training games supposed to start? Usually they're last week of February, first week of March. You're in full swing.
About 10 days from right now. So we are speaking on the 16th. This is when reporting date was supposed to be, and 10 days from now is when games would have started.
So
Well,
pitchers and catchers were supposed to be there today.
Correct. Yes. So in normal times, I would be joining you from Florida or Arizona.
now, but the truth also is that in normal times, pitchers and catchers would have reported probably in late January, a good number of them, and would be hanging around camp and playing catch and whatever, unofficially, but that usually is the case. They can't even go there now, right?
Right.
Can't use the facilities.
Not if you are a 40-man roster player. So minor league mini camps have been happening.
Right.
They've been going on and will go on in the month of February. So if you're not a 40-man roster player, if you're not on a major league contract, you are able to go to the sites. And in fact, we're hearing a lot of announcements of spring training type minor league training camp activities going on at the beginning of really it's sort of later on this month and beginning of March. But the major league portion of spring training will not be happening until there's a labor deal.
The guys attending these spring training things, would that include veteran free agents that don't have contracts?
So if you were a minor league free agent at the end of last year and signed a minor league contract, then you are able to be there. But it's only if your deal is a minor league deal and you were a minor league free agent. Under those circumstances, you would be able to join in the minor league spring training camp.
So what are you hearing about the negotiations, discussions, et cetera? I mean, we're getting nothing positive out of it. They're not really making any progress.
It's been slow. And obviously there was a proposal made by MLB on Saturday. As we speak here Wednesday afternoon, we're still waiting to hear what the union's response is going to be. It has taken longer than I expected it would. I thought that by now we would be getting back into camps. I also think that I'm trying not to panic here or to sound any alarms, especially not until you get to March. The end of February is probably the line of demarcation. Again, the 28th of February is about where you'd have to be able to get in enough spring training to start the regular season on time. And as we all know, there are deadlines. We've seen it happen before in CBA talks in hockey, where sometimes it doesn't look like there's going to be a season or deadlines are going to be lost. I think both parties realize that the deadline to start the season on time, the regular season, is in about 2 weeks. And so I expect those weekends coming up, especially that weekend, 26, 27, 28, right around then, will probably be the real crunch time where we see both sides really work hard. There's certainly a lot of animosity. There's no sense in sugarcoating that. But I also believe there is still a good 10 to 12 days left to get a deal done that would protect the regular season, a full 162. And from where I sit, Bob and John, there are pathways. There are legitimate pathways to get from here to an agreement in the next 10 to 12 days. A breakthrough, while it doesn't look that way, I think both sides realize where the potential compromise points are. And it's just a matter of, I think, putting aside a lot of the rhetoric and just hammering out a deal here in the weeks to come.
Well, we've seen how many of these have we lived through. I mean, John and I more than you because we're a little bit older, but I mean, I've seen every single one of these disputes since the early 70s.
In all four sports.
Well, specifically in baseball, I cannot remember one where I mean, if there's a critical, significant issue here, I don't know what it is. And an issue that has long-term impact and implications that one side just feels it cannot succumb to the wishes of the other side. That doesn't exist. They're fighting over pennies. They're fighting over principles. There isn't an issue here that should be causing this. And I wonder if this simply has degenerated into an, oh yeah, just watch us kind of a scenario. In other words, they're winning for the sake, they're trying to win for the sake of winning rather than for the sake of the issues that keep them apart. Your thoughts, Morosi?
Bob, I do think there's legitimate personality conflict, if you will, happening at the high levels of this negotiation. The commissioner didn't say that explicitly, but certainly acknowledged as much, that the tenor of negotiations has not been as positive and constructive as it was in previous go-arounds. There's no question about that. I think that one thing I would say, and we open by talking hockey as we often do, I was impressed that coming out of the last lockout for the NHL, the relationship there has gotten to be as good probably as any of us can recall between the league and the players. So there is a path. As bad as it was when the season was lost, there was a path back to being where the league is today. I would hope that baseball learns from that history and says, however much longer this takes, and I'm hoping it's not much more than the next 10 to 12 days, that once the agreement is reached, you shake hands, you walk out of the room, and you focus on growing the game and working together. That's the only way. That is the only way that this long delay is worthwhile, is if in some way on the other side of this, that there's a better relationship. And so to your point, you're right. The relationship has not been good. There are a lot of struggles right now, but I do think there's a matter of finding a way to get to a better future. And once that happens, the paths to an agreement are there. I hope the paths to a better relationship are there as well.
Well, what is the mountain too high to climb in this negotiation? Oops. Kid issues still. Huh?
Sorry. Yeah. I had another, the
right.
first round of fruit snacks must not have been sufficient. I think that to answer it quickly before I probably have to address the next crisis out there is the players want the young players paid more, the players who are 0 to 3 years of service time. And I think at this point in time, that is now that next real issue in front of everybody. The amount of separation on the bonus pool between where the players are offering and where MLB wants to be is still about $85 million. Once that gap closes on one side or the other, I think the path to an agreement is going to be there and be a lot clearer.
All right, you got to address some issues there.
I'll be right back.
We're gonna take the break, and we'll come back with Morosi once he ties the kids up to the fireplace or something. After
nice.
Back. Well, I don't know what he's going to do off camera. I know what you would. I know what you would have done with your offspring back in the day, because that's when you were in the bad temper mood all the time.
Yeah, you are Captain Kind.
I'm a complete pussycat at home.
Yeah.
Oh, what you're back now?
I got to tell the story about what was going on.
Right, but we got to take a break here too. So you want to wait till we take the break?
Yeah, wait till we take a break.
We can come back from break and I can explain to you what happened.
All right, we're going to do that. Stay tuned. Lord knows we will. Back after these messages. It's Bob McCown. It's John Shannon, and it's
welcome back to Today's Parents with Jon Morosi.
Guys, I got to tell you this. This is probably, I've been interrupted many times by my kids in the last couple of years, especially on the air. This might be my proudest one. So here's the story.
All right.
So as we documented earlier, Lulu, who was 4, needed some fruit snacks, and so I gave her some fruit snacks when I stepped away earlier. So the tapping that you heard on the door as I was trying to wrap my mind around solving baseball's labor issues live on the air while dealing with the tapping on the other side. The tapping noise that you heard was Lulu bringing down her toothbrush, tapping it on the door with her toothpaste, saying, "Dada, because I had fruit snacks, I must brush my teeth immediately." That, my friends, is the child of a physician. Certainly not, I can't take credit for that. But that is Lulu listening to my wife saying, there always are sugar bugs when you have fruit snacks. You have to brush your teeth right afterward. So she comes right down here. And guys, that was like minutes, instantaneously after finishing the fruit snacks, tapping on the door. "Dad, I have to brush my teeth." Like, that's honestly probably top 5 proudest moment I've had as a father, was just that moment right then.
Ladies and gentlemen, that has been today's parenting hint by Jon Paul Morosi.
I'm
Well,
just
I'll tell you-
proud. I mean, it's a credit to my wife. I mean, I
Well,
can't take credit for it.
Well, you should be proud of her. And I mean, clearly, with that kind of knowledge base, she can't be a Michigan fan. Tell her Uncle Bob says, gonna send her
I'm
one
gonna
of
say,
these.
I'll say this. I'll tell Lulu that if she gets into Ohio State, that Uncle Bob will help set up the scholarship for her to go there. That's the plan.
Oh, wait, something
that'll
broke.
keep.
Hang on, the microphone's not working here. You broke up.
Your connection is unstable, right? That's what's happened just now.
John, he's with you, win or tie.
I went through those days, pal. It's your time now.
This is now my turn. I fully understand. All good. But yeah. So as before Lulu interrupted, we were talking about the bridge to gap there, or the gap to bridge, I should say. And for me, it's all about those 0 to 3 players and finding ways creatively to get them paid more money. And also, I want to credit MLB for this. The last proposal included draft pick rewards for teams to have their best players in the major leagues from day one of the season. And certainly draft picks are the language that teams love to speak. It's what they always want to covet and protect. And so if you're going to incentivize your best teams to have their best players, or really all of your teams to have their best players in the major leagues from day one of the season, and would have been allegations of service time manipulation going back many years, the draft pick piece is a creative way to do it. And I really think it was a good thing to have in that deal. And I hope the players see the wisdom in that approach, because draft picks, time and again, whether it's signing a free agent, giving up a pick, which is now gone, by the way, MLB is not having this as part of the current proposal. Draft picks drive so many decisions in this game. And I think that by working creatively through draft picks, there has a chance to be a lot of benefits to both sides of this equation.
There was tons of discussion early on about protecting the middle class, the $4 to $5 million player. Where's that gone?
Well, I still think, John, that to some degree it's still there, because it's helping those players who are in the higher levels of salary arbitration eligibility in that 0 to 3 class. I think too, one of the other things is when you take away the draft pick compensation, it makes free agency work more freely in general. I also think the other point, and this has been part of past MLB proposals, having a salary floor is important, because then the smaller market teams would have the incentive to sign the players who are making $4 to $5 million and to get up to the floor. I think that's a huge deal. The other thing I would say in general is, and this is sort of a natural consequence probably of how leadership of unions often operates and just bargaining, how bargaining functions overall. The fact that MLB is increasing the minimum salary is a huge deal. It's not the sexiest line item in the overall conversation, but remember, we know this no matter what the sport is, that number affects way more players than where Max Scherzer's average annual value is in terms of setting the top end of the market. The overall, the vast majority of players are much more closely aligned with and have career arcs more similar to that player who is just fighting to be that 10th or 11th pitcher on a pitching staff and fighting to have a couple, 2, 3, 4 years of good earnings. It's that player who frankly needs to be cared for the most, because no matter what the particulars are of the CBA, Max Scherzer is going to be fine no matter what. And a lot of the leadership of the union will be fine no matter what. It's those players who are younger who frankly I really empathize for a lot, because you think about if you imagine a 25-year, 26-year-old player who was maybe just getting ready to break through and have a good major league career when the pandemic hit. There was no minor league baseball in 2020. Revenues were suppressed, obviously, in 2021 because of the lack of fans. And now we have a work stoppage. That player's career has never quite gotten going. And so I think that's the person that we all should be thinking about the most here, because they deserve that chance at the dream of a career in baseball. And it's been probably fundamentally changed as a result of the pandemic and some of the downstream effects.
Yeah, but one of the dilemma you have there is this is a temporary situation, we hope, I believe. all of the things you said about the pandemic and their impact on especially young players and their development is true. And their ability to earn revenue as a result of the limited amount of games that they played, this limited scheduling, all of that stuff. The reality is that a collective bargaining agreement such as this will not address that, because these are temporary measures. But maybe they should. Maybe in the course of this collective bargaining agreement, they should say, all right, as a temporary measure, let's do this for the next 2 or 3 years because of what we've been through. And then we'll go back to the situation previously. But that's never going to happen, is it?
No.
I don't think that we'll see a CBA that has one set of governing principles for 3 years and then flips back to another one for years 4 and 5. I don't see that happening.
But no, I don't either. And that's what I'm saying. But don't you think there's merit to that?
There could be. And obviously we're in a situation where teams are trying to get back to their normal revenue setups and players are hoping to get their earnings back to where they were accustomed to going in terms of their increases year by year. What's happening, Bob, I think, and it's unique, is the game is changing in a lot of different ways, all at the same time. The pandemic has brought in a lot of change in terms of the way teams operate, revenues. This was on top of, for years and years, teams moving away from signing veteran players to large multi-year contracts. They will still pay the premium players, the Steven Strasburgs and the Bryce Harpers and Manny Machados in free agency, or a player like Fernando Tatis Jr., who signs that extension when he's still very young. But the Albert Pujols contract is not happening anymore. The Robinson Cano contract is not happening anymore. The Miguel Cabrera contract is not happening anymore. Those types of deals, even Eric Hosmer, you might say, those types of contracts are not happening any longer. And so you have that economic change at the same time as the emphasis is now being placed on drafting and developing, which is obviously, as we know, less expensive talent, plus different ways that front offices now operate and the way they value players. Arbitration system is somewhat archaic in the way that they use more of the old time stats in determining player wages. And you also have the overarching picture of what the revenue streams of the league will be as you enter this new phase of cable TV, cord cutting, et cetera. There's just a lot of change happening at a very sensitive time. And to try to capture all of that uncertainty and all of that change in one labor agreement at a time when both sides are somewhat not on the same page, we can say very mildly, is a huge challenge. I mean, there are some definite headwinds that have nothing to do with any personality conflicts, but those headwinds are exacerbating what is happening right now with those personality conflicts at the top. And I think it's leading directly to the long state of negotiations that we're dealing with right now.
You know, Bob talked about that we've been through all of these labor disputes. You know, we remember them, we talked about them, but this generation of baseball player hasn't been through one. How much of a factor do you think that is at a point when somebody's going to have to flinch?
You know, John, it's a great point. I do think that players are going through this in a very unique way that to your point, we haven't seen happen in a generation. There was the delay to come back to play in 2020 for obviously different reasons related to the pandemic. There was maybe a little bit of a sense of what was coming back then because the sides did have some challenges in getting the game back on the field. But I do think the union had advised the players to build up some additional savings to prepare for what was going to be a protracted negotiation. But I do think that having a lot of people at the table, the players, a lot of people negotiating the deals, going through this for the first time, I think is really changing the way that a lot of players are viewing it. And I think perhaps has led to this taking a bit longer than maybe we had hoped it would at the outset.
Do you think Tony Clark's in full control? I'm not saying that I know anything, but this is one of the questions. That he's not a lawyer. He's a player first. And you look at all of the other, player unions and other leagues, it's all run by lawyers, and Tony Clark comes from grassroots.
I think Tony is the leader without question. I do think that there are some very strong voices there, Bruce Meyer being one of them on the legal side within the union framework. Then, of course, Scott Boras, we know just by having a lot of his players on the executive board, Scott has a big voice in this as well. And there's no question about that.
Well, and my point is that I think you've got a leader on the players' side who's been subject to criticisms and may not be completely secure in his role. And you've got a commissioner on the other side who's never been through this contract negotiation thing. And I think they both are trying to establish their preeminence.
Their territory.
Yep. I think this is a territorial battle really between two people more than two sides. And this is not uncommon in a labor dispute. I think if you had a commissioner that had been in the chair for 20 years and Don Fear, for example, as heading the Players Association, two guys that had a history and were secure in their own standing, they would have had a deal by now. This is kind of carving out territory for these two guys. I predicted this would happen. Not that I'm happy about it, but it just seemed like, we're going to have a problem here because these two cats haven't gone down. They haven't had a cat fight yet. They haven't won or lost one, and they both feel like they got to win one, Morosi.
Right. Well, I think that there is plenty of wisdom in that viewpoint of just taking the longer look at maybe the game being due for a conflict of this magnitude. I also think that, Bob, the last couple CBAs were regarded as very clearly pro MLB. And so as a result, the players feel the need to make a huge statement here. And so when you feel the need to make a huge statement and really stand for a number of key things that you're just not going to move off of, it does create a bit of a stalemate. And Colin McHugh was quoted by The Athletic months ago as saying the players have to realize that we can't make back everything that we've lost or gain back the quote unquote upper hand in negotiations all in the course of one CBA. That's not the way things typically work. You can't rewrite the labor underpinning of the industry in one negotiation. It's going to take some time. And so I do think being realistic on those points is crucial. I also think, Bob, that when you look at this, to your point about maybe different voices in the room, MLB did propose a mediator and the union rejected it. Now, that could have been a helpful moment to bring in a third party to say, okay, what do we really want here? What are the key priorities? How can we fashion a deal? I do think it's important to point out that MLB at least went down that road of offering that, and the players didn't want to go there.
Well, I think that's somewhat telling too, don't you? I mean, I think it's a cat fight. It's a back alley fight. It was predictable. These guys want to establish their territory, not just within the game, but to their own constituency, and more Tony than the commissioner. I mean, commissioner has 32 guys to deal with. The head of the Players Association's got 1,000 players.
Well, and to your point, Bob, think about and to your point about the challenge of leading the union, given the vast difference in life experience, in earnings between a top earning player and a player who's just trying to get his way into the major leagues, who maybe didn't have a huge signing bonus to begin with, the needs financially of a Max Scherzer and of a rookie just getting into the profession are vastly different. And I think that's why, to your point, it's very difficult to unify all those constituencies in one clear overarching message.
I don't know if I'm going to just a few minutes left here. I want to get off of that for, the contract for a bit. If you can remember far enough back, Morosi, is there a team that impresses you as being potentially the most improved based upon what they did prior to the stoppage and negotiations and discussions? I mean, there have been some big signings, but do the Texas Rangers look like the most potentially improved team? Is it somebody else?
Texas. I also think, Bob, Seattle is poised to finally make the playoffs. They last made the playoffs in 2001, getting Robbie Ray, of course, as you know, you saw him up close in Toronto for a number of years there. I think to get Robbie Ray to go along with that very strong young group of players. As you hear Lulu chiming in about who she thinks is going to be a really good
She
team.
thinks it's the Jays.
My answer, as you can see, the fruit snacks only have a certain amount of time where they're effective.
Well, we're gonna let you go.
I'm gonna go with the Seattle Mariners finally making the playoffs.
All right, we're gonna let you
Luisa,
go because
Luisa, per piacere, mi tesoro.
Oh
Okay,
no, stop.
I'm now having to resort to speaking to her in Italian to try to get her to calm down.
It's
Tutto va
okay.
bene, okay? It's okay. All right.
We don't want to cause a major disruption within your
Hold on.
family circle. So we're gonna let you go. And we'll,
Okay.
we'll
John.
continue this conversation another date. John, what?
John.
Yes, John.
John, can you teach Bob some Italian? Because we need him to calm down every once in a while.
Yeah.
Cinque due, cinque dono.
Yeah, I think Bob knows some Italian. Bob knows.
Well, no,
some-
he speaks Greek. He speaks Greek most of the time.
Okay.
No, I
So
used to
I would
speak-
say,
I used to speak Greek. Those days are over, Shannon.
Oh,
so Bob, if you want to wish your audience a good day, and as I will do here, buona giornata. Buona giornata.
Grazie.
Holy smokes.
Buona giornata. Just it soothes the soul. And Luisa, per piacere. Okay, ci vediamo prossimo. Okay, I'll head out, gentlemen. È un grande piacere, come sempre. It's always a great pleasure. I wish the Buckeyes the very best as well. And I'll come back with a full report next week on Michigan Ohio State hockey. All right.
Tell the kids.
$5. Hold on, $5 on USA Canada tonight. $5 Canadian though on USA
I
Canada.
think it's the next time I see you guys in Canada. If the US wins, you guys buy dinner. If Canada wins, I'm buying both you guys dinner. How about that?
I love it.
There you go.
Believe it.
In
when I
piacere
see it.
mio, I will say I'm feeling strong about the US tonight. Abby Rock's gonna be the hero, I believe, for the US. Kendall Coyne Schofield, Hillary Knight. I'm all in on our team. Can't wait. All the best, gentlemen.
I can't wait for the dinner, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to. Goodbye, Morosi. Good luck with
Take
the,
care,
with the
gentlemen. All the
offspring.
best. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Oh, that's funny.
Jon
Goodbye.
Paul Morosi. We'll come back and wrap it after these messages. All right, so we have to let Morosi go a little bit early. This kid was driving me crazy.
You know, well, it wasn't driving John crazy. He was driving you crazy.
Well, I had a kid when I was 50 years old, you know.
Oh God, you deserve a medal then.
Well,
I can't imagine.
I mean, I just don't have the tolerance. I love kids. Love kids. But, you know, 4-year-olds are 4-year-olds. You know, you got to put them in the cage. You know, give them a couple of Tootsie Rolls and lock the cage and then don't let them out because they're not to be trusted. They don't understand daddy's busy. But I want this. Anyway, so Morosi is off dealing with that now.
Yeah, and he's got.
And
the
I want-
fruit snacks for-
I
fruit
had
snacks
questions
for
I wanted
Lulu.
to
It's
ask.
good. Oh, well, maybe I can answer.
Well, I know you can't.
Oh,
I don't think, actually, to be honest, I don't think anybody can answer the questions. I mean, if and when this strike, lockout ends,
lockout. It's a lockout.
what's the Blue Jays' number one priority? What do they got to get?
Third baseman.
I don't disagree.
Let me ask you this. More importantly, Bob, give me, in your wise old opinion,
Mm-hmm.
opening day. What date? Give me a date.
Oh, I can't even guess, John. And I'm not gonna.
What?
I'm not
You
trying to
can't take a
belittle you.
guess? You can't say May 1st. You can't say April 26th.
I think it's still possible they start the season with a shortened training camp whenever it's scheduled to start. And I think it's scheduled to start March 30th or something,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
somewhere around
They
there.
screwed that up too. They screwed that up too. Major League Baseball screwed that up too.
What do you mean?
It always used to be April 1st. April 1st.
Well, the first week of
That was
April.
it. In Cincinnati. But
First week of
now
April.
everybody thinks they have a tradition of starting first. Used to be the first game, Cincinnati, in the afternoon.
Well, I don't. I never. I don't. That doesn't bother me at all. Because the Cincinnati Reds have been so insignificant in baseball for so long. I don't know why they should get that designation. And I
Because
hated March. I hated
Aren't
March.
they one of the
shot.
original members of the National League?
So
No, but tradition, Bob. Tradition.
I don't care.
It's like Fiddler on the Roof.
Well, why not the New York Yankees?
Because the Yankees are
The most storied
franchise.
franchise. The Cincinnati Reds haven't been relevant since the 1970s, since Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench,
Tony Perez,
Tony Perez,
Davey Concepcion.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, that's when they were significant. They haven't been
George
significant since then.
Foster.
What was that? That was some lineup. They only won 2 in a row, didn't they?
Yeah. Sparky. Your buddy Sparky.
Yeah. Saw Sparky when he played second base for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know that?
Okay. I asked you a trivia question yesterday. I'm going to ask you another trivia
All right,
question.
you got 45 seconds. Make it fast.
Well,
I got yesterday's right too, didn't I?
Yeah, you got both of them. What's Sparky's real name?
George.
Boy, you're on a roll, man. That's 2 days in a row.
George Sparky Anderson.
That's right.
What number did he wear for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
2. For
One.
the people that aren't on the podcast, aren't
One.
visually, 1. Okay. Really? What
I'm
what
pretty-
did what did Babe Ruth wear? What did Babe Ruth wear?
Didn't wear a number when he started.
Okay.
They didn't have
Well,
numbers.
you are on a roll with the trivia.
What would we do without numbers on uniforms now? We'd be completely
Well,
lost, wouldn't we?
Well, and then of course, when they added names to the back of them, they had to
Well-
get rid of numbers. Okay. You got to go, Bob.
We got to go. We have wasted an ample amount of your time, and we thank you for it. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.